So a good discussion is around where are we in blockchain's maturity model. Blockchain's maturity model is sort of similar. There's three different challenges in the area here. The first is the storage and the compute layer, right? So these are distributed systems that have to process hundreds of millions of transactions at the same time. The proof of work method of blockchain is starting to expire. Currently, I think the last estimate I saw was it costs somewhere like $1 million of electricity to mine one block on the Bitcoin blockchain, which actually pays between $4,000 to $5,000. Now that's a massive improper fraction that will not scale over time. But if you look at the proof of stake blockchains like Ethereum or Ripple or Corda or Hyperledger, you don't have that type of improper fraction because one person decides to go look for truth, and when they find it, everyone else could test very quickly and do round robin it, so you don't spend $1 million of electric power to solve for one block. You only spend one person's power. But the throughput is lower. I think we're seeing something like 8,000 transactions per second right now, which is not enough for global scale. Visa, for example, runs about 120, 130,000 transactions per second, right, if not more. So we have an issue of scale at the storage and compute layer, which is evolving over time. This is coming from open source, this is coming from consortiums, but we're seeing evolutions there. And it's both hardware, network, and software at the same time. I think that will evolve over time. That's the first dimension of the blockchain maturity model. The second dimension of the blockchain maturity model is what data sets do we actually put through the blockchain maturity model. Most of the focus has been around financial data sets, right? Financial data, right? Assets, currency, etc. In every blockchain is a concept called a token. Now the word token is a bit of a misnomer. It's actually a container. It just ended up being called token because the first application of it was for a coin, and so you popped it in a token. It's a container of value. There are other data sets that will go through this. I cover this in the book a little bit. Identity data is one that we have to put on a blockchain eventually. We have massive challenges with identity data, not just with identity fraud, but with the lack of identity. The last estimate I saw was over 1 billion people in the world don't have identity, which means that they can't participate in banking networks and they can't participate in commerce because they can't prove that they are who they are. Right? Then there's things like reputational data. Reputation data is a bit of a show right now, right? Reputation for businesses is some combination of stars between 1 star and 5 stars. Like that's where we are as a species, right? In commerce, you rank a company based on star ratings. It's kind of silly if you think about it. Then there's inventory data, right? When you buy something that's a limited edition, how do you know that only 100 of those were produced and it wasn't 200 instead? There are things around agreement data, market data for pricing, corporate data around the bylaws. We're seeing things like decentralized autonomous organizations participate there. That's the second dimension of the maturity model for blockchain. The third dimension is around how much of those smart contracts can be baked into the fabric itself. So if we're starting up a healthcare chain, for example, we want to make sure that HIPAA is loaded up into the blockchain so that when participants come on, when they write transactions, it has to be bounced off of the HIPAA laws. So when you see a record written, you know that it's HIPAA compliant right away, right? And this is the type of stuff where things like natural language processing can be used to look at all of the regulations that are out there and build early caricatures, if I may, of the rule set that needs to be baked into the fabric itself. Those are the three dimensions that we see blockchain evolving over time. If you want to act on it today, you should be in the pilot mode, right? We talked about what are those things that create good blockchain use cases. You should be in a pilot mode, anticipating that within 2 to 3 years, we're going to be able to get to the scale that we want from a storage and processing perspective. We're going to be able to get new data sets on the blockchain, not just financial data sets, and we're going to start to see a lot more rules baked into the fabric itself, and we don't have to worry about compliance of those rules within transacting business networks.